It's haunted. It's your son.
I had another nightmare last night. That burned man with the striped sweater, he keeps trying to kill me.
I can sleep. I just don't want to.
But I don't know how I'm in that picture. I didn't meet Dean until high school. But now every time I dream, I always see this man. He's burned and melted. And he's always trying to attack me with these knives
on his fingers.
Do I have some sort of connection with Chris, Dean, and Jesse, or Quentin? Like maybe we went to school together when we were little or something like that. Do we ever know a guy named Freddie? Nancy's starting to remember.
You really shouldn't fall asleep in class.
Oh, God.
No. Just me.
Look at me!
Look what you did to me.
How do you know he was guilty?
Oh, my God.
You killed an innocent man.
Wake up, Nancy! Wake up!
We're gonna be in here a long time.
Nancy, please!
You really think your boyfriend could wake you up?
Please don't do this!
I'm your boyfriend now. You're my number one. You're my little Nancy.
It hurts, doesn't it? It's because you're in my world now, bitch.
Now why don't you just fucking die?
You're not real! You're not real! You're not real!
I am now.
Hi, this is Kelly Maroney from Shopping Mall and the Zero Boys, and you are listening to The Hysteria Continues.
And indeed you are. Oops. Oh, I always forget that bit.
I was waiting to see if that would happen.
Always happens.
Always happens, yes. I've got a memory, the mind of a goldfish, so which comes in useful when I forget Toya music. Anyway, talking of which, I see that are we playing out with a Toya song for this one?
We might be, if you're lucky. Only if you're really nice to me.
And you didn't think this was torture enough, Erik?
It was very rude.
But anyway, well, talking of our resident Nancy, Erik, why did you pick this one for us to cover today?
Because you touch yourself at night.
Right.
Punishment.
Well, it could be interesting to see. I'll talk about. Obviously, we're covering A Nightmare on Elm Street, the 2010 kind of reimagining, as was all the vogue at that point. So we're going to run out of Nightmare on Elm Street films. Although I don't know if you guys have heard the rumours of a prequel or another sequel or another reimagining, possibly with Kevin Bacon in the role of Freddy Krueger.
Is this a joke of the week or is this real?
No, look it up. Google it now. Google it right now. He's been approached and he said never say never, but I don't know if that's going ahead. But anyway, how are we doing? Nathan, are you excited?
I'm very excited, but I always am, Okay, I just looked it up, and yes, Justin is right.
It is. It's on cinemablend.com.
Yeah. But I think that was from a little while back. I don't know if it's kind of... And apparently Kevin Bacon said never say never. So, and Robert Englund had given him his blessing to play the title role of Freddy Krueger. But whether that comes to pass, I don't know. But we can talk about that a little bit later. But Joseph, I imagine you've got adrenaline pumping through your veins right now.
Can you please stop touching yourself at night, Justin?
It's all your fault, Justin.
What was that? Is that the Divinyl song?
I Touch Myself is a Divinyl song, yeah. But I think
it's also a Family Guy reference.
Yeah, it's a Family Guy reference is what I was using.
Well, I know. I touch myself, and you're just a bit touched, Erik. So.
There you go.
Well, what was that from? That racket?
That was from the Mighty Boosh. That was Terminal Margaret singing their classic hit, I Did a Shit in Your Mum.
Oh, good Lord.
Good Lord, indeed. Another one of Eric's questionable choices, one of which we'll be covering a little bit later. Before we do that, let's talk about what we've been watching recently. So, Erik, tell us what anything been on your radar?
I have two recently seens, believe it or not. This is the first time in months I've had some recently seen. So I watched the much hyped Everything Everywhere All at Once, which isn't really a horror, but I thought I'd throw it in because it does have Jamie Lee Curtis in it. So Yes, this is streaming now on Amazon Prime. If anyone is in the UK and Ireland, they can stream it there. It's a really wild and chaotic film. It's very imaginative, but it is 139 minutes long. So the first 45 minutes or so are quite good, but the middle hour just lost me completely. It gets too chaotic. It doesn't pause for breath. You remember, Justin, you were describing those sort of Nun and Conjuring and La Llorona films as they have so much going on that they become boring, and that's how I felt about the middle section of Everything Everywhere All at Once. It needed to stop and pause for breath, or, well, ideally it needed to be about 45 minutes shorter, really, because it does feel really overlong. It's kinetic and chaotic, and it feels very much like a Marvel movie to me, although it does feel like it's directed by Salvador Dali, but you're bombarded with so much action and so much strangeness that I just kind of got numbed to it after a while. You know, that middle section reminds me of my experience of watching, is it this called The Strange Colour of Your Body's Tears? That strange sort of art installation giallo thing from about 10 years ago. The cast are excellent in it, like Michelle Yeoh and Jamie Lee Curtis are great. And it has one incredible moment that's probably worth watching the film for alone. It involves two men who are fighting Jamie Lee Curtis, and they're fighting Michelle Yeoh, and they're both anxious to stick a butt plug up their arse, for reasons that will become clear when you watch the film. But it's that level of silliness and absurdity that keeps the film, I suppose, buoyant for me. But overall, 139 minutes was too long, and it was, as I said, it was too busy and noisy a film for me overall. But I mean, it was kind of enjoyable. But again, I'm not into this sort of Marvel Universe type of stuff, which is what it kind of reminded me of to a degree. Has anyone else seen it?
I have not.
It's kind of got one of those. I have seen it. I kind of really liked it. So I kind of, it didn't. I didn't mind. I kind of, because I don't like the Marvel films. I don't watch the Marvel films, but I know you're going with that. But I found it kind of much more inventive.
It is very inventive, and that butt plug scene was hilarious. I'm sure you'll agree, Justin.
Yes, and Jamie Lee Curtis is quite incredible, because the whole thing, it kind of goes through these kind of multiverses, isn't it? Where everyone's slightly different in each one, and you've got like evil Jamie Lee Curtis in one, who's like a kind of kung fu ninja type,
and then there's a universe where she's a lesbian and has hot dog fingers.
Yes.
And then there's one universe where people are just rocks sitting in like what looks like the Grand Canyon, and there's another one where they're piñatas, and it is very inventive. But I just found the middle section just needed a bit of reining in, I thought.
Yeah, I need to rewatch it. I saw it a while back, but I remember enjoying it. So, Joseph, have you seen that one?
I don't think I've even heard of this.
It's got I don't know how to pronounce his name, but he's the young Asian actor from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and the Goonies, Ke-Huy Quan.
Yeah.
It's him growing up. He plays Michelle Yeoh's husband in this, so it's his first Hollywood role, I think, in over 30 years. So he's really good in it as well. It's great. It's as Justin says, it's very inventive. I just found it went on a bit too long for my liking.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to that running time, but it sounds okay. I'll give it a shot.
You might get more out of it because you like those touch of time. Like, it's not like Time Crimes, but it is in a way that it's skipping through alternate universes rather than time loops.
The multiverse stuff. Yeah, I like that stuff.
Okay. The other one I saw was the new Hellraiser 2022, which came out just 2 days ago. I liked it. Again, it's 2 hours long, which I think makes it by far the longest of the Hellraiser movies. It doesn't remake Hellraiser. It's I suppose it's kind of like one of those standalone sequels that was going straight to video, except this seems to have a lot more care and a bit of a bigger budget put into it. Effects are good. Plot is that a couple of thieves break into a warehouse and find the puzzle box. They solve it, and they're visited by the demons, blah blah, yada 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 yada, the usual kind of setup. For me though, it still doesn't recapture the magic of maybe the first two Hellraiser films. And the reason for that is that the star of Hellraiser for me was never the Cenobites. It was always Skinless Frank and Julia. They were the two characters that really drew me into those first two movies. And, you know, once they were ousted from the series, it started to become a bit more anonymous. This one, it has really interesting looking Cenobites. Of course, we've got a female Pinhead in this one who looks great. I mean, the plot doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It kind of is aping something similar that was devised in Hellraiser Bloodline. I won't say anything more than that. But people are saying it's by far the best sequel. I still think 2 and 4 would be above this, but it certainly is a lot better than the straight-to-video, the Infernos and the Hellseekers and that, which I kind of do like, as you know. But this one feels like a proper movie. It doesn't feel throwaway in any way. And it's well worth watching. I mean, when I saw the 2 hour running time, I was like, oh, is this going to be really slow? But it wasn't. It kind of breezed by quite quickly. So yeah, it's a thumbs up, I think, for me, for the new Hellraiser. Anyone else have any desire to see it?
I'm trying to get interested because a lot of people I know say it's really good, but for me, the Hellraiser films, they just seem to be repeating that people dressed in leather saying that pain is all sexy, and I find that kind of silly. I mean, it was fun back in the 80s, but now it's just like old hat. So I'm not really that interested. I was never a big fan of anything past the first 2 or 3 Hellraisers to begin with. So
pain is sexy, but not as sexy as Bob Hoskins or me.
Well, maybe Bob Hoskins could come. Would you like that if he came back from hell dressed in leather?
Yeah, imagine a Bob Hoskins Pinhead. Spank me, Bobby. I've been a naughty little boy.
Yes, that's the mental image. I'm not going to be the gal. So I haven't seen it, but I'm mildly curious about it. It's funny, the parallel, as I agree in some ways with Joseph. The parallel of what worked in the 80s, is it going to work now as far as kind of regurgitating the whole thing? And the parallels are with Nightmare on Elm Street. The remake is going to be, is possibly a similar thing that I'll be saying. But having said that, I definitely will give it a watch.
Yeah, the other thing I should have said about it was filmed in Belgrade in Serbia. So it has that kind of American film filmed in Eastern Europe feel that you get from things like Subspecies and Puppet Master sequels and that type of vibe, which I suppose slightly cheapens it to a degree, because it's never convincing as being... I don't know if it's meant to be set in America or not, but it certainly doesn't convince if it is.
Well, I'm also like you, Eric. I don't really care who they cast as Pinhead, because I don't really care about Pinhead. Like you, Frank was an awesome character from the first film.
Yeah,
I just don't care about the Cenobites all that much.
Did you say that this one was filmed in Serbia?
Yeah.
So would you call it a Serbian film?
Oh dear.
Don't respond to him. He needs to know what he's done.
No, that was good.
Don't encourage him.
Oh dear. The humanity.
The humanity's fine, I promise.
Okay, that's my recently seen.
Okay, well, thank you, Eric. Well, Nathan, let's see if you can redeem yourself.
Okay. Surprisingly, I have seen 2 films, but they're both family-friendly horror. First, I watched Hocus Pocus 2, which I love the original, so I was excited to see this one. And while it's not as good as the original, of course, I still liked it. I thought it was fun. I thought that everybody gave a good performance, and it was just kind of fun to see the Sanderson sisters back and causing trouble and, breaking into song and dance at, random intervals, which is always fun. But yeah, it's good. It kind of follows the plot line of, they get resurrected, by these, 2 girls, and one of them kind of has power herself. So, it's about them trying to stop the sisters from, killing and eating children, as you do. But I enjoyed it a lot. Have any of you guys seen it, or the original for that matter?
I have not seen it or the original for that matter.
Yeah, the original was a little past my time. I know a lot of kids liked it when it came out, but I never really got into it, so I haven't seen the sequel. I'm not, if I'm honest, I'm not really all that interested.
I've not seen either of them, to be honest. I think it get a bit past my time. Although I did enjoy seeing some religious nut jobs on the internet saying, "Do not let your children watch Hocus Pocus 2 because they're casting spells on them through the TV screen."
Oh yeah,
well, that's true, Justin. That is true.
Yeah, indeedy, yes.
The other one I saw was Rob Zombie's The Munsters. And what I have to say is I thought that the use of color in the film was good. Like there's a lot of like vibrant, colors, and the actors, did a decent job, and that's it.
Is Sherry Moon in it?
Yeah, she plays Lily.
Well, there's a surprise.
One problem I have with the Munsters that I think they tried to do is the Munsters always had that very goofy, sitcom-y kind of humor, and they try to go that route, but it's spread into a 2-hour movie, and to me, that just doesn't work for a 2-hour movie. It worked for a 20 to 30-minute sitcom, but if you're trying to spread this out into a whole movie, it's just, people being like sitcom-y type characters for the whole length of the film, and I don't know, it didn't work for me. I didn't really find it all that funny, like I was hoping I would.
Well, isn't that a bit of a problem, making a comedy that's not funny?
Well, there's no F words in it, I'll tell you that.
Okay, well then, it would be probably if I had to sit down and watch another Rob Zombie movie in my lifetime, this would probably be the one I'd choose then.
I do like the fact that he's kind of kicking it, going against type, and making a film like The Munsters.
I really wanted to like it more. I really did, because I also like that he, is going against type and, trying to do something, different from, what he usually makes. I thought that was a great idea, but unfortunately, this one just didn't quite work for me.
Well, what about you, Joseph? Have you got any interest?
I saw about 10 minutes of it, and I have to commend him. I mean, the set design is fantastic.
It is,
really. Yeah. I mean, he's, if nothing else, Rob Zombie knows his set design, and it's light and it's frothy. It's totally anti Rob Zombie, but it's just not funny at all. And I hate to say this because I don't really like laugh tracks, but it needed a laugh track.
It did feel like a laugh track was missing.
Yeah. I mean, I saw, like I said, I saw 10 minutes. And that was enough.
And to me, Fred Gwynne as the original Herman Munster, I just don't think anybody can play that part as well as he did.
Okay, well, thank you, Nathan. Joseph, how about you?
Yeah, I saw the new A24 slasher film, Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. I didn't hate this, and I totally expected to, but at the same time, it's been a couple weeks since I've seen it, so I could barely tell you anything that happened in the film. But the plot is basically that a group of characters are trapped in this house during a hurricane, and they decide to play the game Killer, where, one person is the killer, and they have to figure out who's doing it, and they find out that they may be trapped with a real killer. I mean, that's it. I think... my one takeaway that I remember without spoiling too much was that it's more or less a kind of a scathing indictment on that whole TikTok culture. It borrows inspiration from something like, I don't know, something like Tucker and Dale versus Evil, at least thematically, to sort of tell this story of these Gen Zers who... It's funny because they resort to like hyperbole in the face of anything that slightly conflicts with their kind of instant gratification personalities until the bodies literally start, piling up all around them. And to say any more would probably spoil it, but to suffice it to say, I went in expecting, I don't know, like smugness and a superiority complex with the characters, but I ended up laughing at them more often than not, which was good. And I thought the resolution to the identity of the killer was really clever, considering who these characters are on a surface level. But I don't know, I was entertained enough, I guess, but it's not a movie that leaves any real lasting impression. And, while it is clever, it's not as smart as it thinks it is. So it's a half-hearted recommend for a one-time watch, but I don't really have an interest to see it again. Have any of you guys seen it? Justin, did you watch this one?
Not yet. No, it's on my list of movies to watch. But no, it looked interesting, so I'm looking forward to it.
What about you, Nathan?
Yes, I did watch this one. But no, I really enjoyed it. I don't necessarily, like you, Joseph, I don't necessarily think it's a rewatchable film, but, I had fun with it. I thought it was very, kind of light and breezy horror. And like you, I mean, the most amazing moment in the film is the revelation of the killer. It's just so awesome, and just, I don't know, I just thought it was, I can't give it too much away, but I just thought it was a great idea, and just really out of left field.
Yeah, I mean, it's the best part of the movie in my mind.
It's great. I mean, that is great. So overall, I would recommend it for sure. But it's just one of those movies that, once you've already seen it, I don't think it would hold up to repeated viewings necessarily.
Yeah. Eric, I don't imagine you've seen this one.
Not yet, no. I keep seeing it everywhere I click on the internet, though.
Okay. Well, let's see. I also watched Fall.
Oh, I'd like to see this one.
I've seen that.
Okay, yeah, I watched that. It's about these two girls who climb this insanely tall, like this decommissioned TV tower, and it's like 2,000 or 3,000 feet into the air. And one of the characters is kind of beset with tragedy and is looking to, more or less conquer her fears. And her friend wants to live stream the climb on their Instagram account. And, as they make their way to the top, it essentially becomes one of those confined space, trapped in a certain location horror films when the ladder breaks loose from the tower and it leaves them stranded. And, not only do they have to, do they have the that great fall to contend with, but also dehydration and starvation and a couple of nasty vultures zeroing in on one of the girls' wounded leg. It's not a very good film to start. I mean, the editing choices are really choppy, and the film runs way too long at nearly 105 minutes. I mean, this is short film material, if I'm honest, and the resolution to the central predicament, I mean, it just sort of happens without much fanfare. And I also found it, difficult to empathize with the adrenaline junkie characters. I mean, they get themselves into this harrowing situation by way of their own stupidity. So the viewer may or may not experience a hint of schadenfreude, but probably not empathy. But at the same time, if you have that acrophobia creeping around in your brain like me, you wouldn't wish this sort of predicament on even your worst enemy. So I think the aerial photography and all of the close calls were well handled to the point that I was literally sweating and my stomach was churning. And eventually I actually had to stop the movie a couple of times to kind of regain my composure, as I have a serious fear of heights. Is that enough to carry the movie? Like I said, there's a good short film in there somewhere, but I don't think the suspense moments, as good as they may be, are enough to justify the runtime and kind of the maudlin drama that breaks up some of the action scenes. And like I said, the film just sort of ends on a lackluster note. I mean, like I said, if you have a fear of heights and want an upset stomach, you could do a lot worse. But ultimately, it's a case of a great idea trapped in a very mediocre movie, in my opinion. Justin, you said you watched this one?
Yeah, I really liked it, actually. I thought it was very well done. Like you say, it's probably a bit overlong. I don't want to spoil anything, but there are a few unexpected things happen in it, which I kind of appreciated. I've got a bit of a fear of heights, so it was kind of quite a white knuckle ride. But I thought it was really well done. I think if you're kind of have a soft spot for those kind of thrillers, then I definitely check it out.
Yeah, it's like every time one of the characters would just like stand on the edge of that tower, just standing there, nonchalantly, I'm like, please stop doing that, please. Mm-hmm. Eric, did you say you saw this one?
No, it's what I want to see, though. And I still will watch it. 105 minutes does sound kind of drawn out for what sounds like a very basic premise. I'm assuming there's just two characters in it, is there, for the bulk of the film?
Yeah, for the most part, yeah.
But no, I'll still give it a whirl, because it's I don't know. I'm attracted to these films that have these very simple premises. It sounds kind of like not like, but akin to something like Buried, which is one man in a coffin under the ground. This is like two girls high up in the sky. Do a TV antenna really go that high up into the atmosphere?
I don't know. I should have looked that up, but wow, I wouldn't go up one rung of the ladder, let alone 2,000 feet in the air.
No,
on
going into the
edge
attic
of a
is
counter.
enough for me. So yeah.
Yeah, I jumped out of a plane once, and that was enough, and I'll never do anything like that ever again. So yeah. Nathan, did you watch this one?
Yeah, I went to the theater and watched it. So talk about a white knuckle film. I mean, watching it on the big screen and, like you said, all the close calls in this movie, like just had me like holding my breath because I'm terrified of heights. Like being in an airplane is absolutely horrifying to me. I have to take some Xanaxes or something to calm me down because I do not like it at all. Just the heights in general. They're just they're very scary, and in this one I like the characters, and I'll definitely agree that it probably went on longer than it should have. I think if this movie was kind of like maybe an 80-minute film, like it would have been better. But even still, I mean, I loved all the situations that come up when they're at the very top of this thing. And like you, some of the scenes that drove me crazy is when they're just standing there. I'm like, there's like a pole in the middle of this platform they're standing on. And I'm like, I would be clutched to that thing. Like, I wouldn't be just standing there looking down all that way. I mean, no. Of course, I wouldn't be up there to begin with because, I don't like going up a ladder to clean out the gutters on my house. So, that's, to me, that's scary. Like, they could make a movie about that.
Yeah, I mean, Eric, I think you'll like this. It's perfectly watchable. It's perfectly entertaining. It just could have been better.
Okay.
What would it have been like if it had been in 3D at the cinema?
Wow.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. That would have been amazing. Oh, talk about a missed opportunity.
Absolute, yeah.
I can't remember the name of that film, but the one with the Gordon Levitt guy, I can't remember. He did the one where they walked across the Twin Towers.
Man and Wire? Or was that the documentary?
Could have. I can't remember. They did a film, but that was in 3D.
Yeah, I mean, I saw Cliffhanger back in the early 90s, and there's a scene where a girl falls a great distance, and that really made me like almost want to vomit. This movie's like that on crack. So my stomach was in knots the entire time, which, I guess is a good thing. I mean, it got a reaction out of me, so.
Yeah, I definitely agree there.
Excellent. Okay. Well, thank you, Joseph. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay. Well, I'll just rattle through a couple of things that I've watched. I finally got around to watching my Vinegar Syndrome disc of Mausoleum with, is it Bobby Breeze or just Bobby Breeze? I'm sure Nathan will know.
I mean, I don't know how to pronounce it, but I think she's amazing in that movie.
Yeah, if you've not seen it, it's got like she plays this kind of housewife who succumbs to this ancient family curse, and the movie makes a great deal out of the fact that her surname is Nomed, which of course is demon backwards, which is kind of absolutely the easiest thing in the world to work out. And
is she from Nilbog?
It's that kind of thing. But her eyes go green in that very 80s. I think it came out in 82, 83, in that kind of painted on kind of neon green thing. And then her boobs fly out of a negligee. And then men die around her. And then she turns into this kind of horrible control type creature. It's a lot of fun. It looks amazing on the Blu-ray. But I'm sure, Nathan, that's one that you've seen.
Oh, yes. I loved it. I thought the effects were a lot of fun. Like, just, the whole movie is just so silly, but it's great. Like, my favorite character was the housekeeper.
She's great, isn't she? She's really funny. She was a is it Wanda LaPage or something? And she was a comedian, wasn't she, in real life? So it's kind of played for laughs, her character. But yeah, that was really funny. When she goes upstairs and sees all that dry ice, the green dry ice coming out of the bedroom, and she just goes, and just walks out of the house, which is exactly what you should do.
I mean, like, to me, it was an example of a smart character in a horror movie, because the second she sees all this crazy danger, she's like, I'm out, I quit.
Exactly. Very smart.
And I think that's the last we see of her. And I'm like, that's a great moment when she's just like, nope, I'm out of here.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun if you've not seen it. Eric, have you seen it?
I have, yeah. I have it on DVD somewhere. I haven't seen it in a while, but I do remember it being lots and lots of fun.
Yeah, it used to be a regular. I remember seeing it at the video store, and apparently it was a #1 film in America for 1 week, supposedly. So at the box office. But Joseph, is it one you've seen?
Yes, I love Mausoleum. I've rented that tape so many times at the video store. I probably led to it breaking at one point, but yeah, it's a fantastically trashy film, and I love the poster artwork as well. It's wonderful, great movie. Fantastic, excellent. And the other thing I've been rewatching Hammer House of Horror, the 1980 TV show, which it was a lot of fun. I mean, it's rewatching it now. There's some I hadn't seen before, but there were a lot. You could tell, you could pinpoint all the successful horror movies they kind of borrowed stuff from for them. But my favourite one was The House That Bled to Death, where a couple, it's obviously based on the Amityville Horror, with a couple and their daughter moving into a house that was supposedly haunted, and it turns out that it was all a scam, just like the Amityville Horror, but it has another twist in its tail, which has the amazing scene where there's a children's birthday party where the kids are all about, I don't know, 6 or 7 years old, and a pipe breaks over the top of them, and they all get sprayed in blood, which is probably not a film, kind of something you could do if you made a movie these days. But Erik, do you remember the Hammer House of Horrors?
I can. I always get confused because there was another one around 1984.
Hammer House of Mystery and Suspense.
Yeah, so I always get confused about because I've only seen certain episodes from each. I remember one called Tennis Court. Is that from the Hammer House of?
That's the suspense one, I think, the later one. Yeah.
Yeah, so I might not have seen any of the 1980 one then.
It's definitely worth giving them a watch. They're quite well done, and they're quite, they're sort of, some are better than others. But there's like an Invasion of the Body Snatchers one, sort of. You can pinpoint all the. There's a kind of one called, I think it's called Charlie Boy, which has like a Zuni doll, like Trilogy of Terror, but it has
Voodoo Massacre.
Or Voodoo Massacre, of course, but has a kind of Omen style gory murders, or as gory as you could have on ITV in 1980. They're a lot of fun. The other thing I watched or started to watch when we finished that was there was a 6-part, I think, called Beasts from Nigel Neal. From 1976, and it's another sort of horror show, like a kind of hour-long tales. But these ones are all connected by, they've got something to do with animals. And again, it has a very similar thing. There's one with Pauline Quirk, who, probably doesn't mean anything in the United States, but she was quite a famous actress here as a kind of dowdy shop assistant who kind of causes, has this kind of a kind of poltergeist type kind of thing happening in the supermarket, which is kind of really silly. And then there's another one with a couple trapped in the house by killer rats, which was clearly like the inspiration for the James Herbert novel that came out a few years later, I think, unless it was around that time. So, have you ever seen Beasts, Erik?
No, haven't heard of that one. I do like Nigel Neal, though. He's very inventive.
Yeah, well, they're all on YouTube. So if you search for them on YouTube, they're all on there. So did any of those ever sort of cross your paths, Joseph?
I haven't heard of Beast, but the Hammer House of Horrors, I know we watched some of those, way back in the day. I remember a couple of them, like vaguely. My older brother was more into that sort of stuff at the time. But no, Beast, I don't even know if I've heard of it.
Well, let's say they're on YouTube if you want to catch them. So what about you, Nathan?
No, I haven't seen that. I do have a question, though, for you guys that have seen Hammer House of Horror. Is there an episode where it's like a family in a house and they can't leave, like they're trapped in this house?
Yeah, that's in the 1984 one. That episode's called Child's Play. It's where all that melted goo comes down the chimney.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great episode.
Yes, I'm sure you've had melted goo down your chimney quite a few times, haven't you, Erik?
That doesn't even make any sense, Justin.
I know, but I was trying to put off talking about Nightmare on Elm Street 2010, but unfortunately, I think the time has come.
You're welcome in advance.
So you're going to bring us back, Erik, after this TV spot.
Wake up, Nancy! Nancy, wake up!
Stay awake.
Wake up, wake up, wake up.
I'm your nightmare.
If you die in your dreams, you die for real.
Oh my god. No, just me. A Nightmare on Elm Street. Rated R, now playing.
Death stalks the dreams of several young adults to claim its revenge on the killing of Freddy Krueger. Chased and chastised by this finger-bladed demon, it is the awakening of old memories and the denials of a past of retribution that spurns this hellish vision of a dreamlike state and turns death into a nightmare reality. Now that little sentence doesn't really make a lot of sense to me now that I read it out loud. I had to get the synopsis from IMDb, as my Blu-ray doesn't have a synopsis on the back. It just lists the extras on the DVD. But anyway, this is 2010's remake / reimagining of A Nightmare on Elm Street. So I saw this in the cinema when it came out, and it was predictable disappointment, as you can imagine. After a string of sort of lackluster remakes of other franchises, this one kind of just delivered what I expected, which was, nothing really. So I left thinking that was a bad film, but I don't think I was ever shocked at how bad it was. The major misstep I think that the remake does is that the dream sequences are all really banal. You think that with the technology available in 2010 that they could come up with some outlandish set pieces to rival particularly things like Elm Streets 3 and 4. But this project takes itself far too seriously, and the characters aren't engaging enough to carry a more serious movie, I suppose. The characters are quite morose and distant and uninteresting. And so the film really needs OTT special effects sequences to keep it afloat, and it just doesn't do that. Instead, we get dream sequences that are kind of set in everyday locations with nothing really out of the ordinary, and then bam, suddenly Freddy appears for a split second, and then the character wakes up. I suppose there's a good riff on the marshmallow staircase sequence from the original here, where the new Nancy finds herself in a hallway that kind of turns to this viscous blood substance. But there's no real inventive deaths in the film. It kind of redoes the Tina death from the first one, where she's thrown around the room and you can see cuts appearing on her chest, by some kind of invisible force, and that's redone here. But apart from that, I mean, there's nobody with big hair is turned into a cockroach, and there's no one turned into a marionette, and the dreams all just feel very grounded in reality, and you don't get anything like this of the surreal touches, like the random lamb running across the boiler room in the original, or the hall monitor who's wearing Freddy's sweater and glove. I suppose one of the more interesting things that this remake does is it implies at one stage that pre-burn Freddy Krueger was a good guy who was wrongly accused, which kind of sets him up then as being kind of an anti-hero. Your sympathies are going to almost be with Fred Krueger at that point, but then it sort of undoes that in sort of interesting twist on the tale later in the film, so that's kind of gone out the window. I did like the absurdity of, one of the central conceits of the film is that they're trying to make all the children forget that they knew each other in preschool and that they were all molested by this Fred Krueger character. And yet they leave all this evidence lying around. They leave photographs in drawers. They leave boxes of memorabilia in attics. And even at one point at one of the kids' funerals, they have a picture there that kind of leads them to start investigating. Do they all know each other from, earlier on in life? I thought that was kind of incredibly stupid. The bathtub scene is another one that's done again. Of course, we have Nancy falling asleep in the bath and the glove appearing from between her legs. But apart from that, the dream sequences are just lots of people running around boiler rooms, and the colour palette is quite muted. You don't get any of the sort of the day glow, eye-popping colour of things like Elm Street 4, The Dream Master. Freddy's new look I don't know if I have an issue with the actor as such, but the new look, the new makeup makes him look like an alien. I think the idea is to give it a more realistic burn victim appearance, but to me it looks, as I said, he looks like an alien, and there's a tiny bit of CGI involved, which I think...
I thought he looked like a lizard.
Yeah, he does. He just doesn't... I don't know.
Like a gecko or something.
Yeah, he does, actually, now that you mention it. Yeah, so I just don't like the new appearance. And he talks a lot in this. Even at the height of Freddie-dom in the 80s, when he was quipping and that, he would stick to, you know, one or two lines here and there. But here, like, he's given entire soliloquies to people, and his voice reminded me so much of Papa Lazarou from League of Gentlemen, which I don't know if you got that series over in the States, but there was a character in series 2 and 3, I think it was, of League of Gentlemen called Papa Lazarou, and he had the same voice as Freddy does in this 2010 remake, which just made me chuckle, really. You know, there's no...
I thought he was kind of going for that Heath Ledger Joker style voice.
Yeah.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah, but there's the thing is that he talks so much in this film, there's no mystique to him. If you think of the original Nightmare on Elm Street, he's kind of in the shadows, he says very little, and it's much more effective. And if they wanted to return Freddy to being scary Freddy, I think they should have taken that approach. They should have had him being mysterious and being in the background a bit more, especially when he looks like a lizard. I will say this for the film, though. When I rewatched it this week, and that was probably for the first time in 12 years, I didn't find it as crap as I did in 2010. Now, that's not saying much. That's damning with faint praise. I still think it's an incredibly bland film. But I think it's a lot better than the remake of Halloween, which I still think I hold up as one of the worst remakes out there. And it's better than the remakes of April Fool's Day and Prom Night and The Fog. But again, that's not saying much. You know, the highest praise I can give this is that it's not as shit as I remembered, but it's still a bit shit. So that's, yeah. But it did really well at the box office, which surprised me when I was looking back in retrospect, because the reviews were quite scathing, but yet it did really good business at the box office. So, you know, I suppose there's people like me were just hoping for the best back in 2010. Justin, you hadn't seen this one before, and this morning you got up especially early to watch this little treat of a film. What did you think?
Yeah, I'm not really sure why I never caught up with it. I think probably the reviews put me off, and obviously I should know better. But also I think when I heard it was just a bland, more or less remake of the first film, I just wasn't particularly enthused by it. I kind of watched it, and it was exactly what I kind of expected. I kind of guess it's very glossy. It's very well shot. It kind of looks like a music video, which is not a surprise when you look at who the director was. But the irony is that most music videos are very over the top, like you said. Like the dream sequences here seems, I mean, they're in kind of keeping with real dreams in so much there's a scene where the Nancy character is in her bedroom and it's snowing, and it's the kind of thing you might imagine in a real dream. But you don't pay your $10 or whatever, or $10 or whatever, to go and see a film that just shows mundane dreams. You, like you said, you want something a bit more kind of out there.
No, I constantly dream that I've got big hair and I get turned into a cockroach.
Yeah, I bet you do. For me, the biggest problem with it is it just felt, as we mentioned earlier about like with the Hellraiser movie, is that they didn't really. You're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. We kind of there's an irony here that with slasher movies, what we want of a modern slasher movie is a kind of repeat of the 80s, a kind of simple formula. Whereas the irony when you come to something like this or Hellraiser, you kind of want something a bit more, a bit different, maybe play off some of the same beats, but something just kind of to wake you up. I mean, the irony of this, of course, is that it is quite a boring movie. And a lot of the reviews I saw at the time talking about, it kind of basically is the perfect movie to send you to sleep. Also, the thing I think is that there's some capable performances in this, and also some quite dedicated ones. The people obviously they're trying, but it's also the fact is the original Nightmare on Elm Street, although it was dealing with the similar issues or kind of this kind of child murderer, perhaps molester, which again is kind of very strange when you look back at it, is that in this, all the characters are morose from the get-go. There's none of them are having any fun at all. It starts with basically it starts with one of the characters dying, and immediately everyone is morose. So there's no kind of up moments in this at all. There's no fun to it. And so I can appreciate the fact that they wanted to try something a bit darker and take it back to the roots of the original, and so much that it wasn't that kind of really quippy, Freddy, and wasn't really cartoonish. But the problem with that was that when the whole new kind of thing, which again, I didn't dislike the idea of it. It was quite a brave thing to do, with this idea that all these kids have been molested, and there's a kind of retribution, and it kind of spelt it out more explicitly, I can guess, than the original. It's not really a fun concept. It's not something you can have fun with. It's a bit kind of difficult to process in that kind of way. Also, the character of Nancy, the Runa Mara, they said they wanted someone who was kind of like sort of more of a kind of real person, real character. But I mean, we'll talk about obviously with some of the background about her reaction to being in the movie. But she kind of plays it, and again, there's no light behind her eyes at all. There's no character. The irony is they wanted this kind of realistic character, but her character is just, there's nothing there. She's so one note and mopey. And with Heather Langenkamp, things like going, "Oh my God, I look 30 years old," or 20 years old, or whatever she said. Fun little quips like that. It's nothing in this at all. So it is strange. I mean, the positives are, say, it looks good, but I kind of, after a while, I was watching it, and I kind of felt like I was glazing over a little bit. It just didn't do anything interesting apart from, arguably the actually giving the Freddy character, this kind of reason for revenge in his mind. But yeah, it looked like it's a film, and I think it was, from what I've been reading, a film that was kind of executive devised to death, as it were. It's kind of, things were watered down, and it's a bit blah. To be honest, it's what I thought it was going to be. I was hoping it would surprise me, but unfortunately it didn't, and I think that's one of its biggest problems. So so that's my tuppence.
What did you think of new makeup Freddy? New Freddy makeup.
I didn't mind it. I thought the kind of, if they went and tried to do a kind of a recreation. I mean, obviously, if you're doing Jason Voorhees, I mean, they have done that in his masks, in like when Jason X and stuff. They've done various things, but something like that iconic. But the fact is, you can tell it's Robert Englund under his makeup when he's Freddy, even when they do the variations of the Freddy makeup. So I think if they tried that on him. In this one, so I think it was good that they went with that. I didn't mind it. It looked more nightmarish to me. I mean, look, I think it's based on what a real burns victim would look like if they had the whole face kind of more or less burnt off. So I didn't mind it. I thought actually that was probably one of the strongest things. Jackie Earle is the actor, isn't it? I didn't think he's. I didn't mind his performance, but I thought, again, it was kind of weird. It's these kind of... sometimes it felt like he sounded like he was an Italian gangster. I don't know if they really knew where they were going with the character. I hadn't really figured it out, because even though they said they were moving away from the quips, he does have a few quips which just sound really awkward in this. And I agree that I think if they kept him more in the background and more of a kind of sinister boogeyman, it would have been better. So I think sometimes with any kind of film, if they lose you within the first half an hour, it's very difficult to get you back engaged with it. And I just wasn't really particularly engaged with it. It was kind of, and all the kind of the throwaway things like the gloved hand in the bath and the body bag being pulled through the corridors. It was it was kind of nice nods to the original, but didn't really add anything. So they were taking some of those bits from it, but all that fun, that kind of lightness that Wes Craven brought to the original, like very dark material, but that kind of the fun element was missing. And I think that was similar to a lot of those times. The only film out of all of those kind of sort of remakes around that time, which kind of worked for me, were the Black Christmas remake. and especially My Bloody Valentine 3D from the year before. Those are the only ones that's captured, certainly in the My Bloody Valentine remake, kind of captured some of had a kind of modern twist, but captured some of the fun of the original. And obviously Black Christmas was from the mid-70s, but it had almost like an early 80s slasher twist on it, the Black Christmas remake. It's pretty low. This one will be pretty low down on that kind of sort of mid 2000s to sort of 2010ish. I think this is the kind of the last hurrah, really, wasn't it, of the kind of slasher remakes?
Yeah, seemed to be.
So yeah.
Okay, well, somebody else who has been hinting that this is not going to be a positive review is young Joseph of Henson. Joseph, come on. Let us know.
The original run of A Nightmare on Elm Street films, no matter how much they may have dipped in quality over the years, they always had a sense of wonder to them. I mean, they were the slasher films where everything could hinge on dream logic, and it did. And we'd still buy into every beat because, each set piece was designed to tap into that logic. And it was, it's just great to look at. So, why then is the 2010 remake of A Nightmare on Elm Street such a sad sack bore? I mean, you've essentially got the bones of the OG film at play here, but what they opt to do instead is turn everything, and I mean everything, into a mopey, pseudo-realistic drag with absolutely no sense of humor whatsoever. The new Freddy, played by Jackie Earle Haley, I can't fault him because he does what is asked of him, and he does it really well, actually. But for me, there was always this gray area with the Freddy Krueger character. I mean, we know he was a child killer, but better writers and directors were able to take such a, like a taboo individual and infuse him with just the right amount of, I guess, gallows humor, despite himself. And you also have to give credit where credit is due to Robert Englund for that. But here, Jackie Earle Haley plays him as this kind of creepy pedophile, and they really decide to linger on that fact until you just feel like you need a scalding hot shower. And the teen cast, they don't really help matters. I mean, they're essentially turned from kind of, like the original film, they were like headstrong warriors. And here they're these repressed child abuse victims. They're one step away from being forced into cross-examination on a witness stand or something. I mean, they got tears in their eyes and the memories are flooding to the surface for all the world to see. And, like Justin said, in movie land, that sort of stuff just doesn't work for what is supposed to be a popcorn horror movie thriller. I don't think going for realism in a Freddy film is the right path. I mean, you need to embrace that dream logic and that sense of wonder in the set pieces, and keep Freddy, walking a sort of fine line, I think. I mean, they even hired, like Justin said, they even hired a music video director to helm the project, and someone of that pedigree should understand that, but I could only take so many scenes of, molested children wandering around graffiti-tagged boiler rooms looking sad before I felt the need to shut the movie off and, watch something else, and I wish I had. The one person who actually looks like they're having a bit of fun and they're in on the joke was Katie Cassidy's Chris character. I mean, she behaves, as if she had a pitch meeting with Wes Craven himself. And I think following her would have given the film kind of a much needed spark. But unfortunately, she's killed off way too early. So we can, follow Rooney Mara and the Kyle Gallner. Their characters, they're very morose, and they just basically go to hell and back being morose. And I just didn't care. I mean, it's just an all-around bad movie. I mean, real bad. And not in the sense of the later kind of OG sequels. I mean, they were bad, but they were at least fun. The Nightmare on Elm Street 2010 is just depressing. And I honestly, I never want to see it again. So thumbs way up.
Wow. Now, if anyone is going to like a movie that we all hate, it's going to be Nathan. Nathan, do you love Nightmare on Elm Street?
Love might be a little bit of a stretch. I think I liked it more than you guys did. But, and you guys, I've said this like so many times, but I don't like depressing horror. I just don't like it. Like, like you guys were saying, one of my biggest notes here, and it's something that, you've all said already, is that the characters are never having any fun. Like in the Wes Craven one, there's the scene where Nancy and Tina are hanging out before Tina gets killed. And just all the characters seem to be having like a fun time together. And, it brings this lightheartedness to it that I enjoy. And also not just them, but even in the original, Freddy himself seemed to be having fun. Like, there's scenes like where he cut his 2 fingers off and was like being mocking towards Tina. Just like he seemed to be really enjoying tormenting his victims. Whereas the Freddy in this seems more, I don't know, like I didn't really get the vibe that he was having fun, doing this. It was more of a, just want revenge. Whereas I feel, even though that was the case in the original, he also had, some dark fun, when he was stalking these kids. I did like the whole idea of, where they tried to pull the, he's innocent, and then kind of switched it back to, oh, no, he's actually guilty. I thought that was a fun, idea. I really think that there is the potential to have a good movie. But I just feel they dropped the ball on it. I think that, if all the characters are going to be this dour and just gloomy, I think that, I think like Erik was saying, we need over the top special effects, just something to kind of, break things up. But there were times when it was a dream sequence. I didn't even know it was a dream. Because it's just, I don't know. It's like you said, the dreams seem so grounded in reality, except for stuff like that snow scene. But like so many of them just seem grounded in reality. I miss stuff like Freddy's arm stretching way out and scraping the buildings. I miss that kind of stuff. Like that is what I love about the original Nightmare on Elm Street. I also highly agree with Joseph in that I think if they had followed the character of Chris, it would have been better, because I like Katie Cassidy. I loved her in the Black Christmas remake, and I think she would have been great here if she had been given more screen time.
And she was also in Harper's Island, which I love.
Oh,
so
yeah,
I love
she
her.
wasn't she? I forgot about that. But yeah, she was a great. She was great in it. I think my biggest problem, I guess, with is it Rooney Mara that plays Nancy, is not necessarily. I guess I know there's some controversy about what she said after the filming of the movie, but I just feel that her performance seems very. It's almost like she's bored while doing the film. Like I believe. Not to get too far in the background, but I believe one of the things she said is that she never really wanted the part in the first place. And I feel that kind of shines through with her performance. I mean, it does seem to me like she doesn't want to be there and doesn't want to, be in this film at all. That being said, I did love the throwbacks, the bathtub scene, the body bag scene. I loved, Chris's death, it was very Tina-esque. While none of these match the original, I do love the little throwbacks. I think they're fun. I think, we just could have used more of that sense of fun in the film, and we don't get it. It's definitely what I would call depressing horror. I mean, it's all the characters are sad and doom and gloom, and rightfully so, but it just doesn't translate well on the screen for an entertaining experience for the viewer. I guess that's my biggest problem with it. I definitely didn't mind, some stuff about it. I thought Jackie Earle Haley, did a good job as Freddy. I didn't mind the Freddy makeup. I don't know. It's the remake is just missing, it's missing something, that a movie like this should have had. We're talking about people's dreams. Like anything can happen in a dream. So I don't really understand why they took, I guess a more of a boring route in these dreams. I mean, even the original Nightmare on Elm Street where Freddy was scary, I mean, the dreams were still, maybe not as over the top as they later are, but I mean, there was still, some over the topness to the dream sequences. So, I don't know. Like I said, I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. It just to me, it falls in that category, which is probably the worst category to be for me, honestly, is meh.
Meh.
I was just very meh the whole time. Like, I was like, okay, it's not bad, but that was just kind of my thing. Maybe they could put that on if they ever re-release it, they could put, it's not bad, but yeah.
Yeah. One thing I did really like in the film was the very last shot where Nancy's mother is pulled through the mirror. And I kept thinking, that's what it needed. It needed more of that type of dream effect.
Thank you. Yes, that was a great shot. And if they would have done that through all the death scenes in the film, I probably would have liked this a lot more.
I was curious about whether or not that was, they kind of did that at the end after they watched the film and said, oh, we need something else. Because obviously it was... Did they? Mm.
Yeah. Well, it was a reshoot. I don't know if that was because they felt there wasn't enough dream action in there, but they needed to... Yeah, it was a reshoot, though, an afterthought.
Because it obviously is a play on the original, which, of course, again, going back to the kind of absurdist, kind of surreal nature of the original Wes Craven movie, because obviously I know that was that kind of Ronnie Blakely being pulled through the door window by Freddy.
A rubber version of her.
Yes, I know, which, of course, even at the time, everyone thought was ridiculous. But again, it's kind of, it's much beloved now. So it was kind of an updated version of that. But... yeah, to be honest, it's kind of reshoots are certainly pretty common, especially seemingly in horror movies made in the last 15, 20 years, especially films that have a $35 million budget, which seems, I was thinking, where's all this money going? Where it's not on the screen, really, is it?
No.
It's they obviously had they were a bit nervous about it because it just doesn't really work as a movie. But should we get into some background?
Yes. Nathan, have you got any background on this film for us?
No.
Joseph, Giovanni?
Not a whole lot. The only thing I wanted to mention was, this movie's got a lot of great actors. I think a lot of them are underutilized. Like Clancy Brown. I love Clancy Brown, but he's just kind of there. And Connie Britton, I think she's brilliant, and she's just kind of there. But I wanted to mention Kyle Gallner because he was in Scream 5, and he's one of the first victims to die. But I have to mention him because he was in the very last season of The Shield, which was my all-time favorite TV show. He played a possible serial killer. So any chance I can mention that, I will. But as far as background goes, no. Like I always say, these big franchisees, I typically, stuff like this is covered on a lot of those documentaries. So, no.
Thank you. Justin, what do you have?
I've got a bit here. It would say we mentioned about the director Samuel Bayer, was mostly known for music videos, and his first one and the most probably well-known one he's done, arguably, was Nirvana Smells Like Teen Spirit. And this was his only directing gig, apart from some short films he made. He said in 2009, ahead of the release of the movie, he said he wanted to make it more scary with less one-liners. He said, I don't think it's a funny movie. I'm taking this very seriously, which, of course, is an admirable kind of approach to a movie, but not the best approach for a movie like this, arguably.
Especially if you're a music video director, like we said.
Exactly. It seems very strange. So, and Jackie L. Haley, he said at the time that again the film was going to be darker, more serious and intense, and he said hopefully scarier. He said he hadn't met Robert Englund, or Robert Englund had actually given him his approval as a choice to do it, but he said he wanted him to sign his original Nightmare on Elm Street poster, which is funny because it goes against, there's a thing that I read with someone called Jay Bauman, who was stand-in for Carl Gallner. And he said during production, he says, and again, this is hearsay, but he said he recalls Haley saying during film he hadn't seen the original since it was first in theatres, so I watched it in my hotel room the other night, and it was just the worst movie I've ever seen. Which I know.
Shut up.
Yeah. He also said in some press I was reading from around the time the movie came out, he said about he said the original was super low budget. Which it wasn't really, was it? It wasn't like a mega budget movie, but it's not a super low budget movie. But he said the other thing I thought was interesting, it leads back to what one of you was saying about, he said the director said he wanted the difference between Freddy of the Wes Craven movie and the subsequent sequels, and the difference between that Robert Englund's portrayal of Freddy Krueger and his was to be similar to the difference between Jack Nicholson and Heath Ledger's Joker. So was it you, Joseph, saying that he sounded like he was like Heath Ledger?
I got the feeling that he was kind of channeling that whole "look at me," that Joker thing going on. So yeah, it wouldn't be so. I mean, the films kind of feed off each other, don't they? And certainly successful films certainly influence others. He was contracted for 3 films, which included this one and 2 sequels. And of course, as we know, this didn't spawn a sequel. I mean, again, I'm not entirely sure why, because this was out of all of the films that came out, the slasher movies that came out, starting with Black Christmas and ending with this one.
Apparently, the producer Brad Fuller has said that although it did do well at the box office, that the backlash from fans, critics, and industry professionals alike was so great that apparently it damaged the reputation to a degree, whereas they weren't getting offered any gigs. They stepped away. Platinum Dunes then stepped away from doing remakes and started doing things like The Purge, and they did another one recently that was successful. I can't think of what one it was, but so that was the reason, because I was surprised as well it didn't spawn a sequel, seeing as it made them so much money. But it tarnished their reputation.
Okay, well that kind of makes sense, doesn't it? But I mean, say he wasn't the only person like bad mouthing the movie. Even I mean, more explicitly, I think as you mentioned, Nathan, Runa Mara was after the film, very quickly after the movie came out. There's a lot of YouTube clips and stuff of her giving puff pieces talking about the movie. And when she defended herself about being in the movie, she said, asked why she's in a horror movie, and she said, well, why not? And she said her favourite horror movies were The Bad Seed and the others. And she'd actually been, although I think it was a blink and you miss it role in Urban Legends Bloody Mary in 2006, but she became attracted quite a lot of criticism, because she went from being relatively unknown with this, going into doing The Social Network, and then of course The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo with David Fincher very quickly after this, and a lot of people left a bad taste in their mouths with her comments on the movie. Now obviously the movie's not great, but it wasn't. It was more the way she talked about it. It was more about horror in general and about how she kind of looked down on it, which I think kind of annoyed a lot of people. She told Vogue a year or so later that she hated it. It left me thinking, if this is what's available to me, I don't necessarily want to be an actress. And then I got a script for The Social Network. She said that she actually tried to sabotage her own audition for the movie. So she tried to do everything she could not to get cast in it, which is very, very strange.
Yeah, that is very weird.
Yeah. And whether or not that was really the case, I don't know. Because surely if you what you do, you go and shit yourself, or not be able to get any lines out or something.
Or you just don't go to the audition.
Well, exactly. So... and she said, she's another quote from her says, you kind of learn to self-sabotage with things you don't want to get. Sometimes you don't want to get something, but you do a really good job and you get it anyway. She said that's kind of what happened with A Nightmare on Elm Street. I didn't even really want it. And then I went into audition and I was like whispering, fuck, I definitely got that. So that was strange. She was also contractually obliged to appear in a sequel to this. So they obviously originally thought this would have legs, which of course would make sense. And again, it makes no sense why. I think Friday the 13th, was it Friday the 13th? I think it was the most successful of all of the remakes of this time. I think that made something like 65 million domestically, and this made 63 million domestically. So very close, because that didn't, we were still waiting for a Friday the 13th sequel. So the only other things, just a couple of other quick things, is Robert Englund didn't like the reboot after seeing it. He said that the remake suffered for ineffective makeup effects. He didn't like the Freddy makeup, obviously, and a lack of empathetic characters, which I definitely agree with. And lastly, a review I found from the Missoulian, which kind of sums it up nicely, I think. It says, by now the novelty is long since worn off, and cheap generic scares are all that are left. and said that the film, said the film had similar to music video, a steamy sheen. And very lastly, Entertainment Weekly closed it with a negative review going 1, 2, Freddy's Coming for You, 3, 4, we've been there before, which again I think sums it up nicely. So that's all I've got, Erik.
Okay, well, I have a few other things here. Apparently, Heather Langenkamp was approached to have a cameo, but she declined. The original intention in the early stages of the script was for it to be a prequel. But that idea was dropped. I mean, we've seen the prequel done on Freddy's Nightmares, and we've seen Freddy's, genesis, I think, in The Dream Child, and a few other episodes, I think, have flashed back to him pre-Burns, so I don't think that was needed. There's a rumor that Jackie Earle Haley auditioned for the role of the role of Glenn in the original Nightmare on Elm Street, the one that's eventually played by Johnny Depp. So Jackie Earle Haley was asked about this, and he says, "It is possible I auditioned for Nightmare on Elm Street, but I don't remember. It's also possible that I could have been sitting next to Johnny in the waiting room. So that's the only reason I could figure out where that rumor started from." So yeah, a rumor there. Warner Brothers wanted to post-convert this into 3D for its theatrical release, which was all the rage at the time. I think Piranha came out in a post-converted 3D, but it didn't happen for whatever reasons. But if there was going to be a sequel, it was going to be filmed in 3D, apparently, or else filmed flat and post-converted to 3D, but again, never happened. The budget on it was $35 million, making it the most expensive of the Elm Street films. You mentioned Samuel Bayer's background as a music video director. He also directed the iconic video for Blind Melon's No Rain, with that girl dressed as a bee dancing around the field. He also worked with the Cranberries, the Charlatans, Marilyn Manson, and David Bowie. Jackie Earle Haley was a child actor, most notably appearing in the Bad News Bears. And he sort of took a break from acting and then came back in his adult years as a full-time actor again. Wesley Strick, who was hired to write the script for this film, was hired on the basis that he'd impressed with a prequel script he'd written for Seven. So Seven was going to have it, well, he did a spec script for a prequel to Seven, which would have been interesting, I think. Principal photography for this film began on May the 5th, 2009 and wrapped on July the 10th and was filmed in Illinois. So it took, 2 months to film? This is an interesting little one. I don't know why this is mentioned on the extras on the Blu-ray, but the sweater was created by the same woman who knitted the sweater for the original Nightmare on Elm Street back in 1984. I don't know if it was needed to bring back the original person. I'm sure that any kind of knitting enthusiast could have put together that sweater for them. There's a couple of deleted scenes as well on the Blu-ray. The alternate opening had a burn patient who is Fred Krueger lying in a ICU ward, and we see his what you call the BP machine that registers your heartbeat. What you call that? Where it flatlines?
I call it the BP machine. The
BP machine goes to flatlines and then it launches into the opening credits. But the alternate ending, so yeah, the original ending didn't have Nancy's mum being dragged into the mirror by Freddy. Instead, it had Chris brings Freddy out of the dream world into the real world, and he appears as he was pre-Burns, so there's no makeup on Jackie Earle Haley. And they set fire to him, and that's the end of the film. So I much prefer the one they reshot with that sort of fun special effect to finish it off on. And the character of Chris, who gets dragged around the bedroom, if you notice, she's wearing a nightshirt with the number 10 on it, which is a nod to Johnny Depp's famous crop top t-shirt that he wears in the 1984 original. And I think that's all the background that I have on A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. I mean, although it's not a film that I think we've collectively liked very much, I think we've kind of hopefully we've had a decent conversation about it and some interesting background and kind of controversy. So as always, hopefully an interesting listen. So Joseph, what was the kind of consensus? I dread to think on the group.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is what I like to see, and I want to see more of this, everybody who's listening. So we had 68 comments on this one overall, and it's mostly vitriol, as expected, but Rob Balducci had this to say. He says, controversial opinion, but I think this is probably my third favorite of the series after part 1 and 2. I think the Nightmare films overall mostly stink, but this one was pretty good. And Luke Kane, he laments generic and depressing. Krueger has no cachet, and Rooney Mara brings zero final girl energy. The emphasis on the sexual abuse angle is too heavy-handed for what should have been a dumb slasher film. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Listen on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and about a billion other podcatchers, both good and bad. And we're heading toward our third Patreon commentary track already with the OG Halloween, our focal point for October. Feedback and insider trading tips can be sent to the Hysteria Continues, all one word, at gmail.com.
Yes, we're not doing a drunk cast this Halloween, are we? But
no.
We might possibly do a tipsy cast for a Christmas title, perhaps. We'll see. So, okay, well, thank you for everyone who's written in. And are there any commentaries that have been announced that we can let the cat out of the bag?
Just the Maniac commentary.
Okay.
And the 50 Shades of Grey commentary we did. Oh, that's meant to be secret, isn't it? Sorry.
Oh, Erik, yes. Okay, but we do have we've got about 3 or 4, 5 in the bag.
5 or 6, I think.
Gosh, yeah. So as soon as we can, as soon as those are announced, we'll let you know. But yeah, the 88 Films have put out a fantastic release of Maniac Uncut for the very first time in the UK. So we had a lot of fun with that one. So but yeah, we look forward to announcing a few more titles. And as Joseph mentioned, we're very much looking forward to covering Halloween. Certainly, we saw one bit of feedback for the Friday the 13th one we did, the Patreon commentary, and somebody, I can't remember, apologies, I can't remember who said this, but they said, they'd seen the film lots and lots of times before, but we kind of gave it a fresh perspective because it was like watching like the film with a group of friends, but because we have a bit more freeform fun with these commentaries than sometimes we can with the ones that we do for labels, although we obviously enjoy those very much as well. But we're respectful, but it's kind of factoid filled, but also we have fun with them. So, do check them out because, we've had some great feedback on that and Prom Night so far. So many more to come. And talking of many more to come, unfortunately, I think it's time for Erik's Joke of the Week.
It's my Joke of the Week. It's so great and fantastic.
What do you call a burnt serial killer who likes to have sex with younger men? Freddy Cougar. Hello?
Nobody respond to me. He needs to know what he did. Yeah, you sit with that, Erik.
Oh, Erik. Let's hope your house one's better.
That's right up, whore!
We are covering Steve Miner's house on Patreon. We're recording that after the show, so another reason to join us over on Patreon. So, but we have some feedback this time, don't we?
Yes, I have some feedback here. Let me scroll. This is from Christy Valenti. She says, hi, I hope everyone is well. I googled around and saw that it was reviewed on the website and showed up on the letterbox list, but has the podcast covered Anguish? My friend rented out a small movie theatre for his birthday and showed it, and it was perfect for that. I know people find it unpleasant, and I think there's a lot to talk about, and I enjoyed it a lot more than the similar, more recent The Last Matinee. Thanks for all your hard work, Christy Valenti. So we haven't covered Anguish, as far as I know.
No.
Why is it on our letterbox list?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know what she's looking at unless she's talking about someone made a letterbox list of all of Justin's
reviews,
Hysteria
maybe.
Lives reviews.
Yeah, maybe.
That could be the case, yeah.
Yes, the eyeball-tastic Anguish.
I haven't seen that in a long time. That would be a good one to cover,
Isn't
actually.
Zelda Rubinstein in that from Poltergeist?
Yep.
So, yeah, well, there's definitely one to add to the list. Well, what are we playing out with, Erik?
Because this is Nightmare on Elm Street Toya has 2 songs with street in the title. There's Street Addict, but I'm playing out with Street Creature from her 1982 album, The Changeling, which is awesome.
Okay, I've never heard it, so
You're
I'll take your word for it.
welcome.
Yeah, and what are we covering next time?
Oh, it's Joseph's pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we're going to put an end, literally, to the Halloween series with Halloween Ends.
Oh, yes.
Although I doubt that'll be the end of it, but I think it's the end of Jamie Lee Curtis's reign, until she needs another boat or something.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Talking about the chatter around that one is that it's going to annoy a lot of people, which again seems like a strange way to sell a movie. But let's see.
I was reading a theory I think it was on Facebook. I saw this theory crop up that they're wondering, will it be revealed that Silver Shamrock have been controlling Michael Myers all this time with a special mask?
I saw that. Yeah, that would be an interesting.
That'd be fun. Yeah.
That would be fun. Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll see. I mean, I did see also some theories that isn't Michael Myers at all.
Oh.
Yeah, my theory was that it's not Michael Myers at all, and that we find out that at some point in the film that the real Michael Myers, who's been missing for like 4 years, died of COVID. But it probably won't happen, but, this is my theory. But I am sticking with that. It's not Michael Myers' theory.
I think it's all a dream, and Jamie Lee Curtis wakes up and Arnold Schwarzenegger comes out of the shower, and it's actually we're in True Lies.
Oh my God, that would be like Oscar worthy right there.
Yeah. Well, let's see. The next time, because it's being released to streaming the same day it's released to cinemas, isn't it? I think so, which means that we'll all get a chance to see it. Well, join us next time when Halloween ends, or does it? Probably not, as Josie said. But well, thank you for listening to Hysteria Continues, and go and get your earplugs, and we'll catch you next time.
How rude! Tavern String.
Say goodbye to good people.
Wait a minute. What are we playing out with? Because I thought I heard Erik say we were playing out with Susie.
No, I said Toya.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Susie Red Over White.
Toyah. Toya.
But you said something about Susie's creatures. You
Eric,
said the creatures or something.
Breaking up there. Eric's breaking up there. Sorry. I can't hear you.
Selfish relative!
You
What was the
dirty
song
nun
you picked,
fucker.
Justin? Is the creatures?
No, Street
I'm trying to write
Creature
this
by
down.
Toya.
I can't hear Erik. I don't know what happened to
It's
him.
the Creature's Exterminating Angel.
Make them stop, Nathan.
Oh,
I think we've lost Erik.
It is kind of, they are ganging up on you, Erik.
Yeah.
You can't speak to me like that.
Nathan, you've ruined the illusion.
What's the illusion?
I think we've lost Nathan.
No, you haven't.
I can't hear Nathan either. I think we're going to have to play it. So we're playing out Exterminating Angel by the Creatures. I think that's what Erik said. If it's not, then yeah.
No.
So anyway, Joseph, we'll catch you next time. So, Joseph, if you want to say goodbye to the good people.
Bye.
Bye.
You dirty horse!
Okay. Well, that was our silliest show for a while, wasn't it?